We'll call the Carlisle Village Council meeting to order. Would everyone please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Bicknell?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mr. McIntosh?
Here.
Ms. Tankersley?
Here.
Mr. Humphries?
Here.
Mayor Winkler?
Here. Do we have a motion to suspend the reading of the minutes by the clerk, and I'll include the regular meeting and the special meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yep.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. Before are the regular meeting minutes of August the 14th. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll have a motion to adopt the regular minutes of August the 14th.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. Regular minutes have been approved. We also had a special meeting on August the 21st. Is there a motion to adopt, or before you are the minutes, is there any corrections or additions of the minutes of the special meeting?
No.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
First or second, however she wants to write it down.
Ladies first.
Roll call?
Mr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Abstain.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. Special meeting minutes have been adopted. Next is our public forum. We have and on the agenda first is a public hearing, amendments to the zoning classification, 15 minutes for proponents and 15 minutes for opponents. We'll start with the opponents. So if there's anyone in the audience who would like to address council, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mark Dias, own the property at 530 Fairview Drive. There in Carlisle. And I particularly don't want mine changed from the M1 to the residential. I'm understanding the goal to people wanting to change theirs because if something was to happen, they couldn't rebuild and so forth. That really is not a concern of mine. I would rather keep my M1 instead of going to a residential. Everything across the street from me is, non-residential. So I would propose that mine stays the same. Everybody else, if they want to change theirs, I don't have a problem with that. If that is their wish. So I would like mine to stay the same. We purchased our property in, I think, 2004, and that was part of the reason for the purchase of it was that it did have that M1 listing on it, so we wanted that and would like to keep it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The floor is still open for opponents. Seeing no one, we'll close the floor for the opponents and move on to proponents. So if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak on the proponents, we have 15 minutes, up to 15 minutes. So please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Yes, sir.
Name's Quentin Kurtzals, and my wife and I and daughter bought the property at 430 Howard Lane. And I would you're probably not supposed to assume anything, but I would never assume that that was a business or manufacturing zone, or we might have thought twice about it. With all the houses around it, we would just assume that it was residential. Obviously, there's no manufacturing across the street because it's a power sub plant. That's not going to go anywhere. And it's a new family in the city of Carlisle. My daughter and grandson are getting ready to move in that house. I've made that house livable. And when I get done with it, I think it'll be one of the nicer looking houses in the city of Carlisle. Mr. Dice wants to sell that house, I'll buy it from him tonight and I'll bulldoze it to the ground if he doesn't want it. But, I plan on a family living in that house. And I would like to see it rezoned residential just for, our insurance purposes and stuff like that. And I'm sure the other neighbors would also want theirs for the same reason, the insurance and stuff like that. But that's all I got.
Okay, thank you very much. Public forum is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
I'm Jim Gross, and we have the property on Linden Avenue, and we were requesting that the property be changed from residential to manufacturing, simply to go along with the properties on each end of it, with Patriot where it is in our other properties. So it would just allow us for any future expansion to continue what we do at the current time. But there are no particular plans. It would just make sense for it to be an M1 district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public forum is still open if anyone else would like to speak.
Yeah, from Dallas Prager, 231 Judy, apartment B. And I still want our front is zoned M1. We want to go still residential. So we can stay there until we die.
Okay,
And that's about it.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else like to address council as a proponent? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Did Mr. Shoemaker?
Mr. Shoemaker, did you want to speak?
I'm sorry, I saw a motion. I apologize, Mr. Mayor.
My name's Ron Shoemaker. I'm at 560 Fairview Drive, and we do support these changes just because of the nature of the property and the surrounding areas. It's all residential, and I think it would fit, nice. It's actually more like eventually it'll be a fill-in project. I have no intentions on developing that. As long as I can, reasonably farm it, that's what I intend to do. But like I said, everything around us is built out or owned by developers, and the writing's on the wall on that one. But hopefully it's something for the grandkids to mess with. So, but anyway, we support the changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the proponents?
Randy, could I
Yes? You're fine.
I do support, the rest of them. I mean, I don't have a problem, like I said before, but I would just like my property, left alone. I support them in what they want to do, that's fine. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all,
Okay,
so.
thank you very much. Anyone else before we close the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And the public forum now is still open if anyone else would like to address council on any other issue. Seeing none, we'll close the public forum. We'll move on to council reports. Mr. Bignell, would you like to start this evening? Okay, thank you. Mr. Jewett?
I just want to thank each and every one of you all for coming out this evening and stating your opposition or support for this update that we're working on the ordinances. Appreciate having each and every one of you out this evening. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McIntosh?
A couple things. First, I would like to thank council for excusing me from the special meeting of August 21st due to a work conflict on the special meeting night, so I appreciate that. I would like to have a quick discussion, if there is any, and then make a motion regarding Beggars Night, making Beggars Night October 31st from 6 to 8 to follow suit, like we always do. So if there's any discussion, we can have that now.
You said October 31st?
Yes.
I'm fine with that. 6
Works
to
for me.
8.
Is that all in line with any of the other municipalities?
Township.
It's my understanding that several years ago, the Dayton Area Managers Association got together and informally agreed to always have Beggars Night on the 31st. That way in communities, there wasn't a year-by-year change. And so that would also follow that informal agreement.
Okay. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to have Beggars Night October 31st from 6 to 8, please.
Second.
Roll call?
1 second.
Okay.
Not prepared. It's okay. It's okay.
Curveball, sorry.
It's called slop, to be honest with you. Okay. I don't have a list. Mr. Humphries.
Yes.
Ms. Tankersley.
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh.
Yes.
Mr. Jewett.
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell.
Yes.
And Mayor Winkler.
Yes.
Okay.
So Beggars Night is officially October the 31st from 6 to 8.
One last item. School has started back for the year, so please watch out for the buses, give them room, slow down, watch for kids, coming on and off the streets. And just watch school traffic with construction starting, having already started to some degree, and I know next week is a big start date for the construction. So this area is going to be tore up for 2 years, so just have patience, abide by the traffic laws, and just drive carefully. That's it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Tankersley?
Yeah, I want to echo Mr. Jewett and thank everyone for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. That's all.
Mr. Humphries?
I'd like to comment about the Warren County Municipal League meeting that I went to in Franklin. I believe it's considered the Life Center at Anderson.
Yes.
And our speaker was State Rep Scott Lips, and he just had an amazing amount of energy and devotion to our region, and just talked a lot about eye-opening experiences, and it was probably one of the best meetings, one of the best municipal league meetings I've probably ever been to, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the mayor's report and move on to the manager's report. I would also like to echo the meeting at the Life Center with Mr. Litz. He is absolutely doing a phenomenal job as our state representative in Columbus. He disclosed to us over there that he has received some death threats on himself and even a letter stating they knew where his daughter lived over some legislation, things that he has uncovered up there. And I think that's a shame, but he's working very hard for Warren County, that is for sure. Also, I would just like to express my condolences on behalf of the city and the council to the Sands family. Mrs. Sands, who was an art teacher at the Carlisle Local School, passed away after a lengthy illness and battle with cancer, and just like to extend the condolences to the family. And that's all I have this evening. We'll move on to manager's report.
I don't really have much tonight, just wanted to remind the public that Emily Sands is still offering a free boot camp to Carlisle, Franklin Township, anybody who's willing to come out and have some fun with her. She is a high energy ball of fire if you have the privilege of knowing Miss Sands. It is on Sundays near the Mary Beekler shelter, which is the shelter closest to the parking lot and the restroom facilities. The boot camp runs from 7 to 8, and the only thing that you need to bring with you is a good positive attitude and a bottle of water. And that's all I have this evening.
Okay, thank you. Under committee reports, we have a report on economic development from Mr. Humphreys.
A couple points of interest from the meeting. We had a resignation from a council member, which was also on economic development. There was an appointment of that seat, that would be myself. After there was a quorum of the three of us, then there was an appointment to have a new chair, and that would be myself also. A couple parts of the comments were reviewing the past luncheon that we had at the Lions Club and looking forward to possibly having another one in September. Hopefully things will come together on that. Again, the biggest thing we need to concern ourselves with is business retention and business recruitment. So I'm excited to be a part of that and hope to move forward soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have no old or new business this evening. Under first readings of ordinances and resolutions, ordinance 1518, amendment of the Carlisle zoning maps to change specific parcels and classifications, on for a first reading.
An ordinance amending the Carlisle zoning map to change the zoning classification of specific parcels.
Is there any discussion?
I guess this would be me. Before you use legislation that's on for a first reading, no emergency. We're not trying to rush through this process. This is a continuation of discussion that we have with council, I believe in May and June, at some work sessions where we invited the property owners. In looking at our current zoning map that's been in effect for a very long time, staff identified several parcels in areas that are currently zoned as manufacturing, but have been used as residential, appear to be currently used as residential, or they're vacant lots that are surrounded by residential and would seem to fit the mold. Why this is important, that we would have family homes in a residential, in a zoned manufactured district, is that they are not allowed. And looking back at the current code and the previous codes, I cannot find any language where a single-family home or any type of residential activity would have ever been allowed in a zoned manufactured district. So I really can't speak to the past as how we got here, but we are. So the concern for staff is for the homeowners, that these properties are not properly zoned for their uses, and if something would happen to those properties where they could become damaged, I believe our rules of our code are damage beyond 50% of the valuation of them. I won't use an absolute word, but it looks like they would not be allowed to be rebuilt as homes because homes are not allowed in those zones. So I think, as we heard a testimony during the public hearing, that was a bit of a surprise to some of our property owners because they've been in their homes for a long time, they've purchased the homes, and I think they want to continue living in the homes. And this also would clean up the zoning map rather than have these pockets of manufactured zones surrounded by residential, to make those congruent to the neighboring lots. And if I could address Mr. Dias's concern, he had requests to keep his property manufacturing. Staff is recommending that we don't, and for two reasons. One is that by our rules, and the rules have not changed, the minimum lot size of a M1 zone for any of the uses is 1 acre. The parcel that he owns is less than that, 0.75. So if, for some reason, he would want, and today, tomorrow, bring one of the permitted uses allowed in an M1 that does not need approval if it's permitted, he would still not be able to use it because it does not meet the minimum lot size. he would need to somehow acquire land to be able to meet that minimum lot size for that. I'll go through it. And additionally, to leave his property as manufacturing would create what was referred to as spot zoning. That is where you have an island, an individual lot that is zoned inconsistently with the surrounding neighborhood. There's been some discussions in legal circles that, and generally in courts, that's been frowned upon, as well as it's been inconsistent with the land use plan to have one parcel completely different in terms of use and buildability than the surrounding parcels. So I understand that it was zoned M1, but I would recommend, for the two reasons I stated, that if we are going to change the surrounding areas to residential, that would be consistent with the further surrounding area around those properties, that we would not leave one parcel of land zoned as manufacturing, because it could not be used based on the current zone, as well as it would be creating a spot zoning district.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Is there anything that I can say? I mean, what's across the street from me? What is that zone where the substation is?
I believe that's also zoned residential. Let me see if I can flip to my.
Does that need to be changed? Or
Yes, this, I'm giving a visual here and I apologize, is, because it should be able to stand up for the blue. The area that you live, Mr. Dias, is in this baby blue section. This is all zoned M1. You are actually right here by the railroad track. I know it's tiny from a distance, but this baby blue is M1. The surrounding beige colors are residential. So even the Duke substation, or whatever it is across the street from you, is zoned residential. The ballpark is zoned residential. The only properties that would not be would be on the other side of the track, and that would be the police station and the service station, and then the township building. Those on the list are being proposed to be business, not manufacturing, but business classification to help protect them.
So did you say nothing is going to happen with the substation is going to continue to be residential?
It is zoned residential. A utility substation for a government facility is allowed use in a residential district. I believe so, but I'll double check on that. But it is currently zoned residential. So it would, so to leave that particular property zoned M1, you would have complete residential with 1 3/4 acre lot as manufacturing.
Which is what to start with.
Correct. Correct. And the concern is that it is not,
Council, find that out.
especially with it being currently zoned manufacturing, given the lot size, it's not usable as manufacturing because it doesn't meet the minimum. And it's being used as a residential home, either as a owner-occupied or a rental property. And if something would happen, you couldn't continue to use it as a home. So you could, in theory, be stuck with a non-developable piece of property.
I have a question. In his instance, you said some of the areas, do you want me to come up? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just so it,
Just for the record, state your name and address,
and it
please.
gets on the thing for the
That's fine.
transcript.
Deanna Stewart, 341 Lantis Drive, Carlisle. You mentioned that some of the areas, like the municipal building, the fire station, the township building, were going to be transitioned into a business. If some of these businesses, or some of these residents, where their property was too small to be listed as industrial, the manufacturing, would it be possible for them to also transition into a business mode, and would they still be able to live in there at that time?
The only classification in a zoned business that could be a home is a B3. And that would, we are having 2 government facilities that for the foreseeable future shall remain government facilities, and the business classification is the best fit for them. To change any of the existing residential lots to business, it could create issues of spot zoning where you would have a business surrounded by residential. We would need to, see, does that fit with the land use plan? It looks like, from what I can tell, the comprehensive plan, those pockets we're earmarked for residential use, but we would have similar situation.
I was just wondering if it could kind of go in that direction. So, but that's with me not having all of the information, so thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? That will be on for a second reading at our September 11th meeting. We have no second or third readings, but we do have an executive session. Personnel to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. May I have a motion to enter into executive session
So moved. No action.
with maybe possible action to follow?
No action.
No action? I mean, if we...
Possible.
Possible action.
So moved. Second.
Mr. McNeil.
Thank you.
Mr. Jewett.
They sounded similar to me, not looking at them. Okay, do I read roll?
Roll
Yes.
call.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yes.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. We are now in executive session. We have a motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yes.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. We are now back in regular session. Council has decided to do a second round of interviews. We're going to interview 3 candidates, and we'll give you those names when we're off camera. And we would like you to notify the 3 candidates that we're not going to interview, just so that they find out from us first.
Sure.
And include all board and committee vacancies in that letter, please. Inviting them to apply for those seats.
I believe we decided it's Tuesday the 4th at,
If possible.
if possible.
What time?
7
7
o'clock.
7, 7:30, and 8.
With possible action to follow that night.
Yes. Anything else?
I do have one reminder to talk about board and vacancies. My finance director has requested before the next council meeting to have a brief meeting of the finance committee. He wants to go over information about the reserve policy, investment policy, that I believe he will also be presenting that night for a possible first reading. But I'd like to discuss it with the finance committee first. He indicated that if we can meet at 6:30, that should be adequate time just to go over it.
Sure.
So this would be September the 11th.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Yes.
Ms. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Bicknell?
Yes.
Mr. Humphries?
Yay.
Mayor Winkler?
Yes. We are adjourned.